Alyssa, welcome to the Your Sorority Journey podcast for our So You Think You Want to Be in a Sorority series. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yes, same. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. It's one of my favorite topics. So glad to be here.
I know when Katie and I were talking, she was like, my advisor has a lot of opinions
I
about
do. Yeah, I really
sorority
do.
stereotypes. And
Yeah.
we got to have a lot of these conversations in preparation for me getting to join your community earlier this
Yeah.
year. So
Yeah,
I'm honestly just excited to share your story
for
and
sure.
also your expertise, both like
Yeah.
personally and professionally. So
Yeah,
would you
totally.
just start by telling us a little bit about your sorority journey and where that's led you in your professional capacity?
Yeah, totally. So I'm gonna definitely age myself here, unfortunately, but I started college in the fall of 2013. This was like peplum tops, mint green, picture it. And I'm from the
Chevron.
suburbs of yes, all chevron. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, and I went to the University of Kentucky. So I went to Kentucky because I really wanted a different experience. I didn't know many people from my high school that were going to Kentucky. And so, because of that, I knew that I wanted to join a sorority, mostly to meet new people, because I was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to need some friends. I'm going to need a support system here. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to go through the sorority process. Nobody in my family was Greek. So that also didn't help because I truly had like no idea what to
Mm.
expect. My mom, this is kind of a funny story. My mom went through sorority recruitment when she was in college at Illinois State, and she was one of those PNMs who did not get asked back from the chapter that she thought she was going to join, and she removed herself from the process. And so she never joined a sorority after that. And to this day, like she regrets that because she's seen how much sorority life has impacted my life. So she
Wow.
like lives vicariously through me. But anyway, I knew so little about the experience that I didn't even know how to pronounce like some of the Greek letters, like truly. So when I got to Kentucky, it felt to me like very culturally Southern. And like as a Chicago gal, I'm like, what am I doing? I felt like very out of place, especially during the recruitment process, because the very first day of open house at Kentucky, I remember I was standing outside of a chapter. We were all lined up, ready to go. I'm so nervous. And the lovely recruitment chair and president walk out and they're in huge derby hats. And I had no idea what that was. And they looked lovely, but I'm looking around and I'm like, do we all have to wear that? Or where do I get one of those
It looks
in
like a
order,
costume, you know?
yeah, in
Yeah.
order to join? I was like, what the heck? And then everyone's wearing these like specific type of sandals that were $150. And I was like, oh God, like I don't have those. Am I really gonna fit here? So from like the first moment, I was really questioning, like, is this really for me? But what kept me grounded in the process was that in my Gamma Chi group, that's what they call like their recruitment counselors, there were women that I knew I was connecting with. It was my roommate, it was people who lived on the same floor as me.
Yeah.
And so they were part of the reason that I stayed in the process because I knew eventually I would find people that I could connect with, right? And I ended up finding that obviously in the chapter that I joined. And there were, in fact, a few chapters that I was really making good connections with some of the women. And it turns out that Delta Gamma really felt like a place for me that I could just truthfully like be my 100% self. And so that's why I ended up joining Delta Gamma there and still am very active in sorority life with them. But and I to this day I would say that like had it not been for joining Delta Gamma, I would not be in the place that I am today as a
Mm.
fraternity and sorority advisor, as a person, as a leader, just in general. I do chalk a lot of that up to being a sorority woman for sure.
Ah, that's amazing. Do you want to tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your professional capacity? And obviously,
Yes,
you've got a great love for your chapter. How
I
did that
do.
translate to wanting to participate in the greater experience beyond
Yeah.
Delta Gamma?
Yeah. I was one of those people who like didn't really know what they wanted to do post college. I was always a psychology major. I never changed my major, but I went from like pre-med to pre-PA, and by that time when I was a senior, it was too late for any of that because I didn't really have any like experience with patient care, and I wasn't ready
Yeah.
to apply for any sort of those programs. And so it actually was my Delta Gamma advisor who was like, hey, you're really good at this like leadership thing. I
Mm,
think you should try to be a consultant for Delta Gamma. And so because of her, she, gave me a little push to say, no, you can do this.
mm,
And I applied to be a consultant for Delta Gamma and ended up doing that for 2 years. And then once again, I found myself in a place being like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I know I really enjoy this,
mm.
working with college students and talking about the sorority experience and how you can leverage that. And so from there, once again, another Delta Gamma was like, hey, you can do this like professionally. And I was like, oh, I guess I can. So I went back
Yeah.
to school and got my master's in higher education. And then once I graduated there, I started my journey here at Miami University in Ohio. Pretty have to clarify that for some
For
folks.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Um, but as soon as I graduated my master's degree, I started here, and now I'm the associate director of fraternity and sorority life. So I do primarily advise the Panhellenic Association, and get the privilege of running sorority recruitment, which is a love-hate relationship, but mostly love.
Well, I love your story and
Yeah.
it's so cool. And it's such a good reminder that like regardless of how your journey starts, it doesn't dictate your experience, right?
Yeah.
And you've heard my PNM story. It's like similar
Hmm.
along the lines of like unmet expectations or like
Yep.
confusing process that led to like a really fruitful outcome. But I
Yeah.
do think it's a hard pill to swallow when we're trying to get potential new members in particular to
Yeah.
understand that there is a bigger picture.
Yes.
And I'm excited for this series because hopefully, for any women who are listening who are even on the fence about registering for primary recruitment,
Yeah.
they can feel like a little bit of a like sigh of relief of like, oh, wow, this is the real deal. Like, this
Yes.
is the truth. Do I need the $150 sandals? Do I need
Right.
cowboy boots if I'm going to school in Texas, but I've lived in
Yes.
California and I've never spent money on boots, right?
Yeah,
Whatever
totally.
the thing is for that campus in particular, I think it's really important to unpack some of that. If
Mhm.
you were going to like sum up for us
Yeah.
what sorority is and
Yeah.
what sorority is not,
Mhm.
how would you describe that?
It's such a good question because I think when I was in college as a collegian, I would have answered this very differently. And even before I joined, I think so many people think that, especially on the outside looking in, that it's just a social club because that's probably, in some instances, the loudest thing that many chapters, councils, college campuses, like that might be the loudest thing that they do, right? Is socialize, right, with one another. But it's way more than that. And I think as a potential new member, that might be what you're seeking is that social element, which totally fine. We are social organizations, but it's not just that. And if you're joining for just that, you might be surprised that there are more expectations of you as a member. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it sorority is a place where you're going to be challenged in the best ways, and also like be held accountable. I think for
Yeah.
the first time when I joined a sorority, it was the first time that like I truly felt like I was a part of something that was larger than myself. I
Mm-hmm.
was in sports teams and in high school, and I had friend groups, but it you start to see a bigger picture of what this could really be.
Yeah.
And I think it's where you really can grow and allows you to make mistakes, but hold you accountable to them. And I don't say that as a bad thing. I think that's actually a really good thing that young women in college actually need to be the best versions of themselves. I also think that it's a place where you truly find what sisterhood really means. Because I think you hear about it so much as you go through the process, right? But you don't fully understand like what that actually means in
Mm-hmm.
sorority land until you're a part of it. And sometimes not even until you like step away from it. And I don't know that I truly fully grasped that probably until after I graduated, that I was like, whoa, like
Yeah.
how cool was that? And also how cool is it now, as I get older, that I still have those sisterhood connections. Life is going to look so differently post college,
Mm-hmm.
but if a PNM is listening to this and not understanding what that bigger picture is, it's me being 29, almost 30, and still having those solid sisterhood connections from when I was in college since the fall of 2013.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And I mean, I also lived through that era, by
Yeah.
the way. I was a
Yes.
year behind you, but I
Uh-huh.
I saw I
Yeah.
saw the aftermath of the peplon, the
Oh my
statement
God.
necklaces.
The bubble necklaces. Yeah. Oh yeah.
The
It's bringing me back. It's bringing me
Yeah,
back.
yeah, the giant, like the really thick wedges. Yep,
Yes.
it was
Yes.
a time.
Yeah.
I think what's so interesting about what you're talking of, like these uh the louder narratives are the ones that tend to stick with us, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what we see in the news, what people
Hmm.
talk about on social media. And the truth is, I find this particularly true on TikTok, but you could expand it to other
Yeah.
social media platforms too. Regrettably, the things that are the loudest tend to be the most negative,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yes.
we have to be a lot louder about
Yeah.
the positive elements of any experience or opportunity we have in our lives for them to ring true, right? Like
Yep.
very rarely are our charitable or volunteerism pursuits publicized like the
Yes.
fraternity party that goes rogue, right? And so,
Totally. Yeah.
and not to say that those things don't need accountability and attention, but I
Yep.
think the reality that there's so much more to the experience
Mhm.
for your benefit and
Yeah.
for your like long-term good is
Yeah.
such an important thing to recognize and also have healthy understanding and expectations of before going through recruitment. And it's
Yes.
funny because not every potential new member has the privilege of being on campus for a semester before the
Right.
primary recruitment process, right? For many
Yeah.
campuses, primary recruitment happens before you even have your first day of classes or a week or two into getting
Right.
settled on campus. Not to say that that opportunity doesn't exist for you as an upperclassman or later
Yeah.
on, but you can't even join a chapter until you've been on campus for a semester.
Yep.
In which case, maybe some would think, what a beautiful opportunity to have a good understanding of expectations and see the sorority experience lived out. But I also think there can be a double edge to that, right? And as
Totally.
beautiful as it is to be able to
Yeah.
develop those expectations, there can also be some like false senses or false assumptions about organizations that maybe you wouldn't have had going into it with a fresh perspective. Can you speak to some of those stereotypes that you see and how you
Yeah.
combat that on a campus that has a semester before joining?
Yeah, it can be so hard. And I totally understand from a PNM's perspective how easy it can be to just go on anonymous sites or apps or websites to learn more about chapters. And I get it, how that can be so easy. And this is where Katie probably is like, this is how Alyssa gets on her soapbox about stereotypes and sorority life. But what so that's easy. You can easily go online to figure out what the stereotype is of any chapter, right? What's harder is actually putting yourself out there in that semester before you're able to join if you're going to a deferred recruiting campus and asking questions of current sorority women.
Yeah,
And I guarantee on most campuses that are deferred recruiting, they have opportunities for you to do that in the fall, whether that's some sort of like information session or open
right.
house, right? That
Orientation, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's just about asking like better questions and preparing PNMs to ask better questions or preparing our recruiters to have more intentional conversations with potential new members. Because I think what we so easily do is we see one thing online and then we label that entire chapter as that. And who's to say if there's any sort of truth or semblance in that? I think it's really important that we encourage PNMs to think critically about who they're meeting in these chapters and what conversations they're actually having. And are their conversations deeper than what are you doing this weekend?
Sure.
Um, or what do you like to do on the weekend, right? Or tell me about your social life. Like, are we having deeper conversations with one another to
Yeah.
really get to know who the women are in the chapter? Um,
Yeah.
Especially on a campus that I work at that has larger chapters, around 200, 215 at the moment, you can't label a whole chapter based on an interaction that you had with one or two women. I think
Yep.
that's really unfair for the chapter.
It's unfair to the chapter, and the truth is when you're in chapters that large, you don't have to be best friends with every single member.
Totally. I say this all the time, all the time. And I came from a large chapter too. My chapter
Same.
was close to 300, and
Yeah.
I was a chapter leader. And because of that, I did know most people in the chapter, but
Mm.
I wasn't best friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And that's part of learning what sisterhood is that you don't have to be best friends with everybody, but when you're in a sisterhood, you have to champion them always.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. But it would be so unrealistic to think that you would be best friends with 275 women.
Right.
That doesn't seem that doesn't seem realistic at all to me.
Well,
If
and I
you
think
are, great. You're a different kind of human.
that's another layer of what sorority is, right? Like
Yeah.
sorority is having a high regard for others that don't always see the same things the way you do
Yes.
and still call
Yeah.
them a sister, right?
Totally.
And it
Totally.
also isn't, sorority also isn't pressure to fake this really
Yes.
sincere, deep, vulnerable relationship with every single member of your chapter. That is not an
Yes.
expectation. You do not need to share
Mhm.
your whole heart and soul, neither in recruitment or in your chapter experience with women
Right.
that you don't share that bond with.
Exactly.
And so I'm glad that you brought that up because I do think in recruitment, we can have really strong opinions, maybe like your mom did, about
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
organization because of these few interactions that we have. And transparently, from the chapter side, we have to be sure that our recruiters are ready to talk on behalf of the organization,
Yes.
not just their individual
Yeah.
experience. While
Yeah.
we want their individual experience to be showcased, we
Right.
also want to demonstrate the truth that that's one perspective of
Yeah.
what a sisterhood of 250 or 50
Right.
personalities
Yeah.
cultivates, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so I love that. I'm curious on the flip side, right? I think for
Mhm.
potential new members, there can be some ownership. And honestly, if you're a potential new member listening, we hope that you take ownership in the process and like
Totally.
really grab on to the truth that like this is your sorority journey, even
Yeah.
before you have letters in your Instagram bio. Like this is an experience that you get to enter into confidently and
Yep.
authentically to you. It's
Yeah.
not dictated by anybody else. But on
Totally.
the flip side, as a chapter recruiter, or more specifically, like recruitment officers, I
Yeah.
do think there's some onus on us to be a little bit more transparent about
Agreed.
our process, both
Agreed.
in joining and the experience of membership after bid day. Do you have
Yeah.
any advice for any chapter leaders listening about
Yeah.
how they can not just redefine their chapter brand, but maybe even more truthfully communicate what
Mhm.
membership looks like in their sisterhood?
Yeah, I actually think this starts well before recruitment. I think this is important for a chapter leader to reflect on their chapter operations and what they are functionally doing as a chapter. So, if we are only having social events, or we're only going to the football games together, or we're only hanging out for social reasons, there's nothing else to talk about during recruitment. If we're
Yeah,
not having true sisterhood events or sisterhood retreats, or we're not engaging in service, or maybe we aren't engaging in philanthropy. If we're not doing those things prior to recruitment, how are we going to talk about that during
right,
recruitment? So I
right.
actually have to think, I actually would suggest that chapter leaders reflect on their calendar. Like, is it balanced? Are we
Mm,
really allowing our members to have the opportunity to engage in chapter operations outside of social related things, right?
yeah,
We are telling a potential new member that we have chapter meeting every week, but then she joins and there's no chapter meeting every week, she's going to be like, what the heck?
right,
Or if we're saying we have a sisterhood event every month and we're not having a sisterhood event every month, she's also going to be like, where are these sisterhood events?
right, right.
So I think
It's
that actually
both
starts,
and yeah.
yeah, it starts before recruitment. And if we really want to make sure we're talking about the well-rounded sorority experience, we have to make sure we're actually giving that to our members. Um,
Yeah,
because they're not going to be able to talk about it if they don't actually engage in those things, unfortunately.
a
So this is
hundred
something I
percent.
talk to my chapters about all of the time, all of the time.
Well, and I think that builds on the point that it's really important of to be proud of the sisterhood, to put in the work to be proud of the sisterhood that you want to welcome potential new members into, you got to start before work week. Like
Yes.
if you're giving
Yeah.
yourself a week to cultivate a
Mm.
culture,
Yep.
like you can't do it in a week.
Exactly.
It takes
Yep.
so much more time, investment, and
Yep.
real interpersonal. It's not just about the members' experience, it's also about your own and like how
Yep.
you feel as an officer, as a member about this thing that you're a part of. And so I
Yep.
think it's really cool that you brought that up of like not not only does it matter when we are showcasing it to others, but we also want to be enjoying the experience ourselves. So like,
Totally.
is our experience balanced? Like,
Yeah.
are we offering things that not only will be sellable in recruitment, but our members want to go to now? Because that
Right.
also makes the whole process of like recruitment preparation so much smoother when they are already bought in to the
Yeah.
things and the membership experience that you have to offer. So I'm really glad you
Yeah.
brought that
Totally.
up because I
Mhm.
I do think it makes a big difference
Yeah.
and
Agreed.
in how members respond to not only their experience, but the opportunity to sell it to other women too.
Yes, exactly. I think when women, like you said, are bought into their own experience, they can more easily express that to a potential new member. Because at the
Yep.
end of the day, like recruitment is about like selling the sorority experience. And if we're not selling like what the experience actually is, then a potential new member might not want to join or might not want to join that particular chapter if they're not feeling like the chapter's members are bought into the experience themselves. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, and it shows. I think that the
Yeah.
other half of
Yeah.
that is it shows. When a chapter
Totally.
member isn't bought into the experience, then they're reading off a script,
Yeah.
right? They are literally just reciting facts.
Yes.
They aren't talking
Yeah.
about how the things that they have been invited to be a part of have impacted them to the
Hmm.
point that a PNM should want to be impacted by it too. Like that's
Yep.
the most
Absolutely.
effective recruitment. And we're really diving into the weeds of recruitment here and I think that's okay because recruitment, I believe, is just like a magnifying glass
Yes.
on the experience that you're already having.
Yeah.
And so, for potential new members, I think you should feel equipped, like Alyssa encouraged
Mhm.
you earlier, to ask intentional questions to
Yeah.
say, hey, help me understand, or help me understand, yes, the calendar and yes, the schedule and the commitment because I want to make sure I can be a good member, but also, what's your favorite part of being a member? Like,
Right.
how did you contribute to this like signature philanthropy event that's a big deal on campus that I saw on Instagram? Like,
Yep.
what did it mean to partner with this sorority toward XYZ community project or campus event? Whatever that looked like
Right.
for them, whatever those signature things are that make your campus special,
Hmm.
understanding how sorority has enhanced a member's experience, not just in the sorority, but on in their college campus and in their lives, I think goes
Right.
so far to help a potential new member understand what the actual experience could be for them.
Yes.
To let
Totally.
them see themselves in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And I think the more that a chapter puts on these opportunities, I will also say there is some onus on chapter members because our chapter leaders may be putting on these programs, but if no one's showing up,
Right.
then there's no
Yeah.
purpose of the program, or the sisterhood event or
Right.
what have you. So there's also responsibility on the chapter general chapter members to show up as well and to want to buy in to build relationships amongst the chapter for sure.
Yeah, and that's so tough. I do think there's like some kind of happy medium there of like
Mhm.
chapter officer continues pushing XYZ type of event, continues getting no or low attendance.
Sure. Yeah.
Eventually, there needs to be a conversation of like, are we just missing each other here? Like,
Right.
what do
Yeah.
you need? Like,
Yes.
what matters to you? And there might be like a fundamental difference of opinion. And if
Yep.
you're considering joining a sorority, I think it's okay as we're talking to be like, oh, that's not what I expected sorority to be about.
Yeah.
Sometimes women join and still have that gap, right? Like, I don't
Totally.
think that is only exclusive to potential new members. I think
Yeah.
sometimes that can also exist through
Hmm.
through the lens of the new member process or being a new initiate and
Yep.
learning more of like what is required of members. And
Yep.
sometimes the result is, hey, this isn't a good fit. Like what
Yeah.
this sorority stands for is in a different lane than maybe the exclusive social experience that you don't need to be in a sorority to get
Sure.
access to. Like
Right.
you can have a great time in college if
Yeah.
that is the only thing you're looking for from sorority without
Yep.
paying all these dues, without
Right.
having all these events on your calendar. Like
Yeah.
go do that. But if you are like invested in like
Mhm.
growing and having like deep relationships and spurring one another on, like really
Yeah.
holding one another accountable to grow into the person that
Yeah.
you probably came to college to become, then
Right.
sorority is a great
Then
place
this
for
is
you.
for you. Yeah. 1000%.
Yeah. So
1000%.
anyways, I feel like that it's a really good note to like start wrapping up on to consider
Yeah.
like sometimes there are gaps in our understanding of sorority before we join, and sometimes
Yeah.
that exists in sorority too.
Yeah.
But it's so helpful to know now that those gaps exist so you have time to recognize and contemplate if
Yeah.
you want to close the gap and
Mhm.
also take on that kind of responsibility or
Yep.
be invested in helping the leaders cultivate that kind of
Yeah.
experience.
Totally.
Because
And
leadership is
Cassie,
not exclusive to title officer roles.
1000%. And Cassie, we've talked about this a lot that I think there is an expectation going into the sorority experience that like off the bat, you're going to have 200 best friends or
Right.
200 sisters. But when you came to my campus, that was something that we talked about a lot, is that you do
Yeah.
join this massive chapter, but some people might be feeling the loneliest they've ever felt because it
Mm,
can just be so overwhelming.
yeah.
So if you're a PNM listening to this, I will also say that like if af hopefully you join, but if after you join, you're not feeling like all lovey-dovey towards all your new sister, like that's
Yeah.
okay. Like sisterhood can and does build as you go through the process. I think that's another thing that we don't always like talk about with potential new members is that it might not, you might connect to some women in the recruitment process, that's the goal. But when you join a chapter, especially a large one, you might not connect with all of them right off the bat, and like that's okay.
Yeah.
But definitely stick it out and try to make those connections beyond that first few weeks. I think that's a critical period is like the few weeks post bid day.
Yeah.
How are we trying to engage with one another? But it's okay if you don't connect off the bat with every single person in the chapter post bid day.
Oh, what a good reminder. And
Yeah.
I think as we close here, I'm just thinking back to your story of how you want to join, you want to be a part of something bigger than yourself. There was a couple things you saw that made you worried about
Yeah.
maybe this isn't for you because these things exist.
Yep.
You were able to get over those because you were curious and you
Yeah.
went in with an open mind. Do you have any advice for potential new members about how to overcome some assumptions or like work through and seek to understand the truth of the sorority experience on the campus to which they'll attend this fall?
Yeah.
That might be serving right now as barriers to their interest to go all in and get excited about being a member of a sorority.
Yeah, I think the process can feel so overwhelming, and that's okay. Whatever campus you are about to be on, there will be a place for you, so long as you actively search for it and try your absolute best to make the connections during the recruitment process. That is partially on you, but also partially on the recruiters, right? And so, what I like to say to potential new members is think about when you are your most authentic self. Like, what are you doing? What are you wearing? What are you reading, listening to? Like, where are you? Like, all of those things. Who are you with, right? Think about when you are at your most authentic self and during the recruitment process, think back to that. And as you're talking to the women in the chapters, think about, could I be my authentic self with this person right
Mm,
here?
yeah,
Because that's ultimately what you're looking for. You are want to find the chapter where you feel like you don't have to just fit in. You
yeah.
can be your authentic self, and you don't have to change anything about who you are in order to be a part of your chapter. So I think it's that as you're prepping for recruitment, think about what does it look like to be my most authentic self, and then go out and find that in your recruitment experience.
Ah, beautiful advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
as we wrap up, I feel like a common thread through our conversation has been sorority really is what you make of it.
Yes.
What you
Yeah.
invest, what you seek, the
Hmm.
curiosity that you exercise, like that is what sorority can be for you. So if
Yes.
you are on the fence about taking that jump to register, just
Let's
know
do it.
that if you register and you're curious, you will be able
Yeah.
to find what you're looking for.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Alyssa, this was a joy. Thank you
Yeah, you,
so much for joining me today.
yeah, always. I could talk about this for hours, but I so appreciate the opportunity to chat with you more about this. And to the PNMs out there, good luck during recruitment. Know that you have a bunch of sorority women like rooting for you and your experience. And I know Cassie and I are here for you. So
Yeah, Alyssa and I are on the bench.
we're on your team.
We
Yeah.
got pom poms, the rest of it.
Oh yeah, with my peplum top and my mint green dress from 2013.
Amen. Yes. All right, thanks, Alyssa.
Yes, thanks, Cassie.